This tutorial demonstrates how to create a pivot table in Microsoft Excel. A pivot table is an interactive table that enables you to quickly sift through and summarize large amounts of data. You can rotate rows and columns to see different summaries of the source data, filter the data by displaying different pages, or display details for certain areas of interest. Before creating your pivot table, you need to prepare the source data. Right now we're looking at a template that contains hypothetical production data for a manufacturing company. This company is broken down into two divisions, a consumer division and an industrial division. And within each division they produce three products: facial tissue, paper towel, and toilet tissue. Those products are produced in a number of plant locations, so we're looking at a northeast plant. If we scroll down, we can see they have a mid-Atlantic plant, a south plant, Midwest, and West. And we have the production data expressed as number of cases, and we're looking at the second 6 months, July through December of 2012. So that's the data that we have to work with, and we're now going to take that data and create a pivot table to make it more readable. To do this, we click anywhere in the data, come up to the Insert tab on the menu bar, and click on the pivot table icon. We're instructed to select a table or range, and the default is to have selected all of the data that exists in the worksheet where our cursor was before we created the pivot table, so we're going to leave that as is, and we do want to create a pivot table on a new worksheet, so we'll click OK. And now Excel takes us to that new worksheet. So over on the left side of the screen we have our pivot table, and to the right we have our pivot table field list, which contains the names of the column headings as our field names. We want to change the display option of the pivot table, so I'm going to right click on the pivot table, click on Pivot Table Options, go to Display, and select Classic Pivot Table Layout and click OK. And now the pivot table has areas labeled in such a way that it makes it easier to create the table by clicking on our different fields and dropping them into the appropriate area of the pivot table. Let's begin by creating a page heading. So we want this page to be labeled with the year, so I'm going to click on Year in the table field list and drag that over and drop that where it says Drop Page Fields Here. And if I click on the drop down there, I can select 2012. I only have 1 year in my data, but potentially we could have others. Now let's take division and click and drag that over and drop it where it says Drop Row Fields Here. So now we have row headings, consumer and industrial, for the two divisions of the company. And we're going to take cases and drop that in where it says Drop Data Items Here. And now what we're looking at are the number of cases produced in each of the two divisions, and notice that the table says sum of cases. That's what we're looking at. Now that's pretty summary level data, so let's get a little bit more detail in there. Let's within each division, let's take a look at the product breakdown. So I'm going to click on Product, and now instead of taking it over to the pivot table, I'm going to bring it down to the bottom area here of the pivot table field list, and where it says Row Labels, I'm going to drop it below Division. Now you can see the total number of cases produced for each product within each of the two divisions. And I can get another subtotal here by taking Plant and bringing that down into the row labels and dropping it below Product. And now the table is showing me the number of cases produced by manufacturing plant for each product within each division. If we wanted to sort this differently, we could come down to the row labels area of the field list, click on Plant, and select Move Up. And now you can see that the data has been reorganized in such a way that we're looking at the data summarized for each manufacturing plant and then each product area within a manufacturing plant. So that just demonstrates the flexibility and the ease with which you can resort your data for different needs. I'm going to go back and change that and leave it by product and then by manufacturing plant. Right now we have only the total data for 2012. If we wanted to look at the months within that year, we can click on Month and bring that down to the column labels box and drop it in there. And now we have column headings for each of the last 6 months of 2012 along with a grand total. To make the data even more readable, we can highlight the total rows by color coding them, and this is easily done. We're going to click on a cell that has one of the totals, so for example cell B9, and then under the pivot table tools on the Options tab, we're going to click on Select, and we're going to click on Enable Selection. Let's try that again. Okay, and now you can see there's kind of a gray shading there on each of the product totals or subtotals. And if I come over to the Home tab on the menu bar and I want to change the color of that shading to yellow, I'll just click on yellow, and now those totals are highlighted in yellow. Notice that if you click on your worksheet, if you click off of the pivot table, your pivot table field list goes away. And if you want to get that back again, just click back on the pivot table and it will reappear. So this demonstrates the flexibility and the power of a pivot table. It's a great way to take large amounts of data and summarize it and look at it in a number of different ways.